Hi everyone, thank you for clicking on this link. It's a reflection for the readings on the 22nd Sunday of Year B. But whatever brings you here, however you're feeling right now, God's peace, God's compassion, and God's love be with you. The readings for the 22nd Sunday of Year B, law and music and the heart. Follow these laws, says Moses, that you may have life. Words from our first reading. Well, I've just celebrated the first wedding in 18 months here in St. David's, Ely in Cardiff. The first wedding in 18 months in which we could have singing, congregational singing, and it just felt fantastic. It lifted the whole act of worship on to a new level. I, as a priest, find it so much easier to find words to talk about the hard experiences in life, the Good Friday experiences, the experiences of sadness and pain. And I'm not the only one. But to express what we believe, the church believes about the resurrection, well, it's very, very hard to do that without music. We need music. We need singing to express that encounter, that faith with Easter. All good music flows from Easter. All good music defies hell and misery and oppression. Ancient Christians, as they were being dragged into the lion's den, sang the church's music. They sang the Te Deum, to you, O Lord. The people who smashed slavery in North America they sang glory, glory, alleluia, his truth goes marching on. The civil rights leaders of the 1960s, Martin Luther King and his fellow leaders, they led people in singing. They sang, "We shall overcome." In April 1945, when British forces liberated the camp in Belsen, the Jewish survivors got together and prayed for the murdered victims, and then they sang. What did they sing? They sang the Hatikvah, the Zionist anthem, the anthem of Israel, the Hatikvah, the hope. They sang on the blog. If you go onto the blog from which this video comes, there's a link to a recording on YouTube of the survivors of Bergen-Belsen singing in April 1945. I defy anyone to watch the film Casablanca, and that scene where the Nazis are singing their song, and then the crowd in the cafe, they sing a counter song. What do they sing? They sing La Marseillaise, and I defy you to watch that scene and not have a tear in your eye. Leonard Cohen once said that as a young Jewish man, he developed the curious notion that the Nazis were overthrown by music. No wonder the Taliban want to suppress it. All good music, wherever it is played and sang in the world, all good music flows with the energy of Easter. So personally, I'm in awe of musicians. I'm not one myself. I can't play an instrument. I'm in awe of musicians, and I'm awed by how it involves so many hours of patient learning. Like, nobody could come to the organ in this church and just start pressing their fingers down on the keys any old how. Well, they could, but it wouldn't be music. It would be noise. To make music, you need to learn the chords, the rhythm, and the grammar. And most worthwhile things in life are like that, like cooking or driving a car or dancing or swimming. They involve learning patterns that you yourself didn't invent. Now, some clever people would say, what about musical improvisation? Well, people who improvise in music or in art, they're often, when it's done well, to do it well, you have to know like how to play or how to bake in a really deep way before you make improvisation work. So you're drawing on a deep knowledge of the rhythms and cadences of that particular skill. Most worthwhile things in life involve learning the patterns that you yourself didn't invent. And what's true of making cakes or music is equally true about how we live together as human beings. Like, often people say, I don't need God to tell me what to do. I can work it out for myself. Goodness, we need to unpack that. But of course, you can. You can just work things out for yourself. No one's stopping you, not even God. But throughout history, it's always the youngest and the weakest and the poorest who pay the price when right or wrong becomes simply whatever we say it is. When right or wrong isn't trying to resonate with something, a music that is beyond ourselves, just something we're inventing ourselves. It's not trying to harmonize with a deeper music. It's no wonder, to my mind, why fascists throughout the centuries have always wanted to kill Jews. You see, the Jews were the first people to explicitly bear God's law, a law that says the strong must look after the weak and we should all look out for each other, even especially those who can do nothing for us. And that ancient Hebrew law is the exact opposite of the law of the jungle, the survival of the fittest, the law of the strongest. If you watch the film 300, the Spartans, there's the Jewish law and there's that sort of fascist survival of the fittest law. They conflict. In our first reading, Moses celebrates the gift of God's law, the Torah, and our word law does not convey the beauty and the majesty of what Moses is talking about. The delight that our Jewish brothers and sisters feel towards the Torah, the Jewish law. In synagogues today, that the Torah scroll is lifted up and people kiss it and reverence it. I've even heard of rabbis dancing with the Torah scroll. It's more than a law, it's a musical score. Buddhists would call it the Tao, the way. It's the hidden wisdom, the hidden music that many sacred traditions have discovered, the secret music that underlies the whole of creation. And we've learnt to harmonize with it. We've learnt to sing with it. So that's what Moses is talking about. Learn this law to live and flourish. Because as Moses says, when humans learn to sing this music and play this music, this musical score with their lives, with their deeds, with the way they talk, when they play it well, this law, this Tao, this way, it attracts and it draws and it delights. When it's played from the heart with mercy and humility, others encounter it and say, yes, that's what's being truly, that's what being human is all about. It's so beautiful. Now, of course, when it's done badly, when religious people forget that God's laws are made for human beings, not human beings for the laws, people naturally run a mile. But don't listen to religious bullies, ancient or modern. God's way is a law, a Tao, a discipline for the heart that wants to heal the world. It is the harmonics of compassion. Psalm 15, which we have on this Sunday, it says that the one who follows God's law doesn't charge interest on loans. Isn't that atheism? Isn't that defying the money god, the god, the mammon? Isn't it interesting that the ancient Hebrews and the first Christians carried this on, and in the medieval church you could be excommunicated for usury, for charging interest on loans? Why do they all hate that? Because it created debt slavery. It's not God, but bankers who say that nations and communities may need to break so that the markets can smile. In our reading from St. James, St. James says that God's way is an unconditional defence for orphans and widows, representatives in ancient times of those who come last and least in the world. For those who in any time or place are powerless or voiceless, socially vulnerable, God's will, the divine music, means mercy, embrace and protection. Jesus talks in our gospel about the kind of things human beings do that are just clanging cymbals, that just make noise, that just bring noise to the world. That's the ways we have of paying lip service maybe to God's law, but in our hearts there's just no pity or love for anyone. It's just a noisy gong, a clanging cymbal. It just, people rightly kind of, they pick up on that, and they know when religious stuff is just nonsense. It's not reflecting God's music, God's law. As Christians, what we're trying to do is let the music of the gospel, its harmonics and its rhythms, shape our lives, because we know that Jesus has come to teach us to sing not just with our lips, but with our lives and with music that comes from the heart. Of course we can go our own way. It leads nowhere. Of course we can just do our own thing. It just sounds like noise. But humbly, one note at a time, learning like a musician, we practice and practice and practice, and we can learn to reflect in our own lives the music of heaven. Lord, make the law, the music of your love, the rule of my heart. Make the music, the law of your love, the rule of my heart. Not because God's bigger than us and telling us what to do, but because following God's way is simply what a human being does, when she wants to make music.